Hi, I'm Henry Winter. I'm football correspondent of the Daily Telegraph, and I'm joined by Didi, Hamann, famous in the Champions League for that remarkable night in Istanbul with Liverpool. Also joined by Michael Owen. I think it's 30 games in the Champions League, 14 goals played for three clubs. A wealth of experience. Just having a look at particularly Manchester City against Barcelona first. Didi, when the draw was announced, Pellegrini described it as beautiful. You've been fairly critical of Pellegrini and some of his tactics, particularly the way he sets the team up. Do you think it's going to be beautiful? Or do you think it will be a difficult experience for City?
No, I think for the neutral, it certainly will be beautiful because it's two of the best squads going head to head, two of the best squads in Europe. Barcelona maybe not the force they used to be, but Manchester City. Probably with the biggest and the strongest squad in the Premier League, but this is another test or a different test because it didn't get out of the group stages in the last 2 years. They did it this time very impressively. Probably a bit unfortunate not to win the group, but they're up against one of the powerhouses in European football, and I think Manchester City they slightly have to change their tactics and adapt because we know how. Barcelona control games, especially in the middle of the park, and I think they need a bit more strength in centre midfield to cope with that threat of Barcelona.
So obviously depending on Aguero's injury and fitness, would you just play one up and maybe push Yaya Toure on, or how would you set City up?
I would if you've got a player like Yaya Toure, which is there's not too many central midfielders scoring goals, and I think he's in double figures this year. He's got a few free kicks. He's very prolific from midfield. I think it's his best season in terms of goals tally, and we're only in February. I would move him up. Yes, I would play. If Aguero is fit, I would play him. If he's not fit, they've got Negredo there, who's a hard worker who can score goals. You know, he's been probably the buy of the season. You've got to say. Play Yaya Toure off him and play two central midfielders. They've got Rodwell, got Garcia, got Fernandinho. To strengthen the team, because if you get exposed in the centre midfield, or if you lose that midfield battle and Barcelona gains control in centre midfield, you get exposed in other areas of the pitch, and I certainly would move Yaya Toure further up.
Michael, what sort of damage can Messi do? And does he almost, it's a crazy thing to say about Messi, but does he almost have a sort of point to prove in terms of having lost the Ballon d'Or to Ronaldo?
Well, I think when you're at the top of the tree, you've always got a point to prove. You know, your next game is always, the eyes are all on you. But I agree with Didi in that Barcelona, their strength over the years has been their numbers that they get in there. Even Messi drops off into the hole, and they almost flood you in that centre of the park. And if I'm honest, watching Manchester City, what I feel has been their downfall against some of the better teams this year, certainly against Bayern Munich at home and then against Chelsea, is that they leave their midfield empty. You've got Yaya Toure, as Didi says, he likes to bomb on. Fernandinho is bought as a sitter maybe, but he doesn't sit too much. He likes to get involved as well, and it's quite an empty midfield. So I think it's best filling the midfield against top teams anyway, but certainly against Barcelona they're going to have to put an extra man in there and sacrifice a striker.
Do you think Pellegrini's done a good job with Joe Hart, because he took him out of the team and Pantilimon came in, and Joe Hart seems to have come back stronger, obviously from an English perspective? That's good with the World Cup in store, but what have you made of Joe Hart this season?
Yes, I think he's obviously made a lot of mistakes early on, and I think Pellegrini has handled him particularly well, and I like the way Pellegrini comes across. He's very calm, assured type of character, and it just appears from watching him do his interviews, I'm looking at him on the sideline, that he knows what he's doing, he's in control. And despite the English press always questioning him about Joe Hart and what he's going to do and whether he's going to drop him, he answered the questions in a real calm way, and I just think he's handled the situation pretty well.
Yeah, and if I get a prediction from you on this particular game.
Well, I think it's always hard to predict Manchester City. If they go with one striker and they actually fill that midfield, I think Manchester City are, possibly a better team. I think they can go through. If they go 4-4-2, then playing into Barcelona's hands, Barca will go through.
Is there a psychological thing with Barcelona as well, because of the players they've got and the trophies they've won?
Yeah, but you could say their invincibility is on the wane. I mean, you look at around Europe now, and Bayern Munich would have to be the team that are there to be shot at. They're the defending champions. They're taking all before them. So maybe, just maybe, that this is a good time to play Barcelona.
Didi, who do you think will go through?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. If they move Yaya Toure up, I think they've got every chance. But you know, this Barcelona team, if you look at how they go in La Liga, I know they're level on points with 2 other teams, or very close with 2 other teams, but I think between the 3 teams they only lost 4 or 5 games, and they were probably the games they played each other. It's still a very, very strong Barca side. Neymar coming in, he came to the party when Messi was out, so you need to see whether they can both perform and both get the best out of them when they do play together. But it's still a very, very strong side. People say they can't defend. That's been the case for the last 5-6 years. Usually they turn the ball over very quick in dangerous areas. Messi had a bit of a rest, so I think he should be well rested for that game. He's back in form. Regardless of how City shape up, I think it'll be a big ask to beat them over 2 legs.
Right. I mean, Guardiola was obviously a fabulous coach for Barcelona. How's he changed things at Bayern Munich, obviously the European champions? What tactically has he done there?
Well, he changed a few positions around. He played Philipp Lahm in centre midfield a few times, and what he wants to do is the same as in Barcelona, that he wants to turn the ball over very quick when they lose it. The intensity of the team, Jupp Heynckes didn't really work an awful lot on that area of the game, which he didn't need to, because sometimes when you've got top players, the more you do, the less you get out of them. They just want to get on with things because they know what they need to do to win football matches. But with him going in, I thought at first it might be a bit of a problem, because you go from one extreme probably to the other, because he works an awful lot on tactics. But the players bought into it, and he came with a great track record. He had the respect from the players from day one because of what he's done in Barcelona. Then again, it's always tough, even though he learned German when he lived in New York, different language, different culture. People said he's never won anything, or he never worked outside of Spain or outside of Barcelona. But he had a huge impact. The players bought into it. They're probably more dominant as they've ever been. Run away with the league again. They're still in the cup. And in the Champions League, they've been fantastic, apart from that second half against Manchester City, where they've probably been a bit complacent. So, he tries to implement all these things he's done at Barcelona. And don't forget, he took over the Champions League winners, so he took over a very, very good side. And the way they're going at the moment, you've got to say they're the team to beat again.
What's the view from a German perspective of Özil coming into Arsenal? Obviously lifted the place, but he's, in terms of the statistics, in terms of the goals, and to an extent the assists, he's not really imposed himself as much as people expected.
No, he hasn't. People probably got a bit carried away because of the start he's had at Arsenal. He came into Arsenal, he did make a difference. I think he gave the whole club a lift. But as you know, when you go into a new club, everything is nice, and everybody's appreciative that you're here. The honeymoon period only lasts so long, and then it goes down to the hard work and being consistent about it. He's not done it. There's no two ways about it. He cost an awful lot of money. He's been the record signing for Arsenal. He cost over 40 million quid. Arsenal never bought a player for that much money. He had an impact early on, but since then it's really gone downhill for him, and his form tailed off over the last few weeks. He looks a very tired player at the moment. It's a different intensity in England. Maybe that's a bit too much for him, but at the same time, if you cost that much money and you're bought as one of the marquee signings, you've got to have an impact on almost every game. And especially in the big games. There've been a few ones lately when they played Manchester City, or when they played Liverpool the other day. He just hasn't done enough, and he's got to pick up very quickly, because there will be a time. I think his form is a major problem for Arsenal at the moment, because there will be a time where he may not be in the starting 11, and is he going to drop him? Is he going to leave him out completely out of the squad, Arsene Wenger? So there'll be a big decision to make. And also, I think what is against him, that with Walcott being out, they haven't got any pace whatsoever in the team, and if you haven't got pace in the team, you don't stretch teams. And a Cazorla, a Özil, they live off these little pockets between midfield and the back four. And when you've got no pace in the team, and they badly lack pace, Arsenal, then sometimes these little pockets don't occur. And I think this is another thing which goes against Arsenal. I think this is why they've maybe not had the results, and I think this is why they will be up against Bayern Munich, and with the players they've got missing, I think it's very hard to see them going through.
Michael Arsene Wenger, I mean, there's always a lot of focus on him, but is he the type of manager who makes good players better? He sticks by his players in difficult times, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think that's very fair to say. He certainly does make players better. He certainly does trust his players. When you look at past months, you look back further and people questioning Ramsey, Mertesacker, Szczesny, Giroud. They were getting dogs abuse at certain points of the season. Certainly some of them last season as well. And if you were going to pick 4 or 5 of the most influential players for Arsenal this year, they would be them. So he certainly sticks by players through thick and thin, and he plays in a way that the players understand. They never change their system, 4-5-1 or 4-3-3, whichever way you want to call it, and they know their job. So yeah, I think he gives a lot of confidence. I think that they're a team that are getting everything out of themselves at the moment. They're near the top of the league. They're still in a couple of cup competitions. That's a fantastic achievement for a team that I don't think are as good as a Manchester City, a Chelsea. I think they're competing with Liverpool's and Tottenham's and Manchester United's, even though Manchester United are slipping off the pace now. So I think he's done remarkably well this season so far. But this next month is a huge month for him. I mean, he's got key Premier League games, obviously a real tough Champions League encounter and a tough FA Cup encounter as well. I mean, this could be make or break this next month.
You've scored against German goalkeepers. How good is Manuel Neuer?
Yeah, for me, he's the best. I really, really rate him.
Best in the world at the moment.
For me, he's just exceptional in everything that he does. His handling, I think he's good with his feet, which is so important in today's game. He sets attacks off. He's commanding. He's brave as a lion, which is a trait of German goalkeepers over the years. And I think the German national team, they've got an awful lot of good German goalkeepers to pick from at the moment, but he is head and shoulders. I think he is. Yeah, I think he's as good as there is in the world at the moment.
And Didi, it would be the first time a team in the Champions League era has done back to back. That's very much possible.
Well, a huge incentive. They are favourites, and I think rightly so, because they've been very impressive. In Götze, they brought another player in who's improved them. Thiago Alcantara from Barcelona. Hard to spot any weaknesses. They've done it last year. They got that monkey off their back because they lost 2 finals against Inter, where they probably didn't deserve to win, but then they lost their game at home, which would have broke some or most teams to play a final at home, being so commanding, so dominant, and lose it on penalties, conceding the last-minute equaliser. To come back from that and win it the next year the way they did, I think showed everything and said everything about the football club, about the team, and they've got an Arsenal side which they play at a good time, because with the injuries I don't think they've got enough to threaten Bayern Munich, and obviously the Spanish teams will be the biggest challengers. I think the 2 Madrid teams will be contenders, especially Real Madrid. I've got a feeling Real Madrid could be the one that runs Bayern Munich the closest, but yeah, you've got to give him every chance, because as I said, you can't spot a weakness with him.
Michael, 2 other big ties, particularly Olympiacos against Manchester United. Manchester United well. You've been slightly surprised that they've been having the problems domestically, but it's actually not been too problematic for them in Europe, and obviously an amazing result at Bayer Leverkusen. If
you hadn't been looking at the league form, then you'd be thinking it's what Sir Alex Ferguson would have done in many ways, qualified without any fuss, top of the league. In theory, they've got an easier draw in Olympiacos. And when the draw comes out, you think that it's going to be the case, but their form continues to struggle. And even against the Olympiacos now, you don't see it as a gimme, which is what I thought it was when they first.
Even with players of the quality of Rooney and Van Persie.
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, I believe they will qualify, and I'm sure they're a far better team than Olympiacos if they're firing. But the form that they're in, you can't discount anything at the moment. They're not playing particularly well. It's a difficult time for them, and I certainly expect them to qualify, but I wouldn't be I wouldn't be putting my hard-earned on it.
You always spoke, and I think Jamie Carragher rang you before you went to Manchester United, saying, "Just call me after Ferguson's first team talk." What is it about those team talks, and have they lost? They must have obviously lost that sort of intensity, moving on to another manager.
You know, there's no doubt in that he was a phenomenal manager, but at some point everything has to end, and obviously David Moyes coming in. I think most people thought it was a good appointment.
Did you?
I did, yeah, and I still think it can work, but there's an awful lot of work to be done.
Does he have to change, or has he got to change the squad in terms of bringing certain players in?
I think potentially a bit of both, because I'm not one of these believers that, you know, everyone are quick to say, oh, the Manchester United, they need a total overhaul and all the rest of it. Well, it's a bit too simplistic, that, for me. One, it's going to cost hundreds of millions probably, but two, they won the league by 11 points last season. They've hardly changed a player. So if anything, they've enhanced their squad with Fellaini signing for near on 30 million. So I think it's all very simplistic, saying, you know, write out a cheque to solve your problems. It's not that easy in football, and I think, you know, David Moyes, you know, for me has got to, you know, tweak a few things to get the best out of what is still a talented squad. Januzaj, Rooney, Van Persie, Mata. I've just named four off the top of my head. I mean, there's some unbelievable talent in there. They certainly should, with those players alone, they should be doing better than what they're doing.
If there was one player that they should bring in, is it Manchester United? Is it a Schweinsteiger type?
Yeah, I think they need a centre midfielder. I don't think there's any doubt about it. They tried a few. Fletcher's come back, fortunately, after his illness, and he's getting back to where he was, but he's clearly not at the same level than before. Anderson left. They tried quite a few cleverly. In the main has struggled, and they need somebody playing next to Carrick there. I think they need somebody who's like a playmaker type, a Modric, a Schweinsteiger, who can dictate games and maybe chip in with a few goals. I think this is one of the key areas. You know, if you look, I agree with Mike, they've got still a very formidable team. They've got in Jones, in Smalling, they've got two very promising defenders. You know, fullback positions, you know, I think you get by. I think that the centre midfield is where you win football matches. And I think this is where they've been lacking. They've got wingers, some of them out of form, but you know, at some stage, hopefully they do come back and perform better. But centre midfield is certainly the key area where I think they need to bring somebody in who plays with Carrick, because I think in Carrick they've got one of the most gifted defensive midfielders in the country. And if you bring somebody in who can play with him, I think that would improve him no end.
Just on Galatasaray, Chelsea, do you enjoy watching Jose Mourinho teams?
They do what they have to do to win football matches, because there's more than one way to win games. And you know, I like watching Barcelona, I like watching Madrid, but sometimes I enjoy a 1-0 more than a 6-2, because end of the day it's about keeping clean sheets. This is how I always saw it, and if you keep a clean sheet, you only need to score one to win games, and this is what Chelsea's doing at the moment. I think they only conceded one goal in the last 6 or 8 weeks. Defend superbly well, and I like it when a team, when players help each other out, and when they all fight for the cause, and there's no passengers, and everybody does what they have to do to win matches. When everybody knows their role. This is why I admire what Bayern Munich has done in the last 2 or 3 years, and this is why I like to watch Mourinho's teams. They're certainly more exciting teams to watch. He's been similar, he's done the same when he was first at Chelsea, but still they've still got some very good players going forward. They've got some flair players, probably the most informed player in Hazard at the moment, and I think they'll be a tough nut to crack.
And you expect them to get through against Galatasaray? I
expect them to go through. Turkish football is, is not been, at the top of European football for a long time. Galatasaray, a very tough place to go. It'll be very hostile. But Chelsea got a team. They've done that before. They're Champions League winners, European League winners, and they know what to do to get a result in Turkey and then finish the job off at home. And it's probably the most informed English side at the moment. I thought all along City will be the team that's going the furthest. You know, at the moment, especially with the draw now, Chelsea playing Gala and City playing Barcelona. You know, Chelsea might be the one that's in the competition the longest, because they've got a very strong mentality, and you just feel that the closer you come to the end, or the further they go in a competition, the harder they will be to beat, especially with the manager in charge. because, as I said, they concede so few goals.
Just finally, Didier Drogba, his last touch for Chelsea was to win them the Champions League. Special player side, Didi. I mean, what is it about him, and will he get distracted by the emotion of going back to a club?
Now, he was exceptional in that game. To score the equaliser, to obviously score the winning penalty, it was unbelievable. But yeah, I think he shows a lot of emotion in games. But he's not the first, he's not the last. He will probably have done it before, played against teams that he used to represent. Yes, he'll have a lot of old friends there, but I don't think that'll make any difference on the result. He's getting a little bit older. Inevitably, he's going to slow down a little bit. Might not be the force he once was. And as Didi says, I fully expect Chelsea to come through this one.
And final question, is he playing against the best English centre-half in the country, in John Terry?
I think a lot of people do Gary Cahill down a little bit. I think he's... I don't think he's bad at all. And I think, going to the World Cup, we're looking ahead, Jagielka, Cahill... don't get me wrong, they're not the best in the world, but they I'm sure they won't let anyone down. Yeah, John Terry, I think Chelsea suits him. They play in a formation whereby, as Didi says, everyone helps, everyone pulls into the cause, and a lot of the time John Terry stands in the back and nods the ball away like a good British centre-half should do. He's good on the ball. If he was playing a little bit more expansive, if he was playing in a team 4-4-2 like Manchester City, then we might be asking a different question. But in Chelsea, I think Chelsea just suits him absolutely down to the ground, and in that role, then yes, I think he's obviously one of the best.
And Chelsea to go through.
Certainly.
Brilliant.